So this is one of those basic videos, and I just want to go through how I finish timber. Let's go through what finishing is. So when you get timber from the merchants or whatever, it's not finished, and it's not meant to be finished because if you finish something, it's easily damaged. So you get something from the merchants, you get sawn or you get PAR, whatever. It'll be dented, it'll be a little bit wrecked, like player marks on it and everything like that. And your job as a carpenter or joiner is to finish something to the right standard and give the customer exactly what they're looking for. So this is a bit of oak. I mean, you've seen it before on the channel. It looks. Some people may say it's unsavable, but I know underneath there's some really good quality stuff. So let's have a look at the tools that you can use for finishing. So you'll need a planer because you'll need to get down to the fresh wood. You will also need grades of sandpaper. So I generally use 3 grades of sandpaper. I'll use a P80. Once I've P80'd it, then I'll use a P120, and once I've P120'd it, then I'll P240 it. So, and then I'll use a coarse, and then I'll use a coarse wire wool, and then I'll use a fine wire wool. If you use those 5 grades, you will have a very good finish. And I'm not saying it's the best finish in the world, but it'll be pretty good and probably more than good enough for every timber job that you'll use. Regarding power planers and power tools and stuff like that, if you're doing bigger jobs and you've got a lot of surface area to do, you really do need these tools. But if you're just doing small things or you've got the time, you don't need them. And one of the main disadvantages of sort of like an orbital sander like this one or a belt sander is the loss of control. They really will take a lot of timber off, and before you know it, you'll have gone too far or you'll have rounded the edges off or anything, and that will show in the final quality. So for complete control, I use this rubber block. And you can get a cork block. It's got little spikes, so you wrap the sandpaper up and everything like that. But it's what I use. But you could use a timber block. But the problem with the timber block is it's a little bit too hard, and you want a bit of give on your block. So anyway, right, let's start. Let's start with this. I'm gonna plane it down, and I'm gonna finish it off. Little hand plane, as you can see. I think it's reasonably sharp, but if it's not, then you'll need to sharpen it. If you need to sharpen it, or you need to know how to sharpen it, then I've got a video about that. So I'll put a link to that when you see this. So let's just give it a go. Right, so for me, that's just taking it off a little bit too thick. So you just wind it in a little bit. And what I do is I tend to put a slight curve on my blades, because what happens then is that when you're planing, you don't leave planer marks in your timber. And what you want to do, you want to try and take it down to a point where you're not seeing any marks. So there's some marking here. Now you can either try and plane that out, or you could say to yourself, I don't actually need that bit of timber, so I'm going to cut it out. So you make sure that you strategically cut your timber whilst moving that. So you start to see, you can hardly see that mark anymore. So I'd be quite happy with that. Right. Ooh, sharp. So that, for me, is a good planed finish. There's no marks in it, there's no nothing. And what I'll do then, get a bit of P80, tear some off, and just do that. And just keep it flat. As you can see, there's just a slight blemish. So I would be looking to get rid of this timber. I wouldn't want to use that. It looks like it's been stained, water stained or something. So but here, it's coming up quite nice. Right, so I think that's got everything out. But what will have happened is, because you've used P80, there'll be quite a few scratch marks, but you've gone with the grain. Scratch marks are along the grain. Now you need to use 120 to get the P80 scratch marks out. So get that. Get a bit of 120. You guessed it. Let's give it another go. Again, looks quite nice. And what will happen is, if you don't get all the marks out, you'll find out when you actually put the stain on or something like that. So if that happens, it happens, and you'll have to refinish it. Not a problem on a piece like this because it's small, but on a bigger piece it can be really awkward. And the random orbital sanders are devil for that, putting little swirls in that you don't see, and right until right at the end. It's starting to look quite polished, almost. Well, not polished, but you know. As you can see, you can start to see that this end here is quite stained. So if I was trying to get everything the same colour, I wouldn't want to use that. But you can make a feature actually. Okay, so that's all the sandpapering I'm going to do. Then what I would do is I'd use a little bit of coarse wire wool, this, and give it a go with that. It really does get a beautiful finish on it. Gets all the sandpaper out, gets all the sand out of it as well. Gets all the dust out, really cleans it. So we've done that. Already starting to look really nice. And the final thing I do is just a little bit of really fine wire wool. Yeah, what you also have to be careful of is not picking up other bits of grit from higher sand when you're doing this. So all this stuff in here will have bits of grit in, and if you do that, you'll scratch it and it will show up. Right, I think that's pretty much ready. See, it's sheen. There's quite a lot of sheen on there. So if I just let me just clean all this off. And then this is ready to finish with anything. You could paint it, but if I was painting it, I certainly wouldn't be using oak, and I might use oak, but you wouldn't need to go down to such a level of fineness. But if you've gone down to this sort of level of fineness, then you'd be able to use an oil or something. So I am at the moment using Danish oil, and I put it on with a rag. I put a very very fine coat on it. So just get a little bit of this, get a bit of rag, pop it in. Just take a little bit more off because you might probably got too much on. And that's that. And if you have a look along it, you can see that it's not scratched. There you go. And that's how you go from that to that. To a perfectly finished edge. Thank you for watching.